Okay, Boker Tov, sorry for the jerky start here. Uh, Not a reference to me. Reference to me moving the camera around. I am doing my morning walk. As you come to know, that's when I tend to lay down these thoughts, rants, whatever. And the thing I wanted to mention to you today is a little bit of a personal confession. It may seem a little strange, but it leads into maybe something bigger than that, and frankly more important anyway than me. So several years ago, I guess I was going through a crisis of understanding, a crisis of trying to kind of get a fix on the world, get a fix on my place in the world, get a fix on what I believed was the truth. Okay, and I think that we can all understand this because we live in a world where it is. There's really a problem with the question of what's the truth. We have this concept of relative truth. We have this subjective truth. We have this my truth, your truth. Speak power, to speak, your truth to power. There's so much talk of truth, and ironically, it comes at a time when there just couldn't seem to be less of the truth. Less of the truth. So you can probably appreciate how anybody could kind of come to grapple with that, right? And so I'm confessing is that I was, and of course there's aspects of what you might be trying to understand. Each of us is on our own journey, but I came to a point where I was really praying on this subject. In fact, it was more than a prayer; it was a conversation I was seeking to have with God. It was a personal, private prayer, and asking, you might say, God for some guidance. Now, I said it was a period, so this wasn't just a one event in my life where I was questioning this. It was, a lot of things, and but I'm going to tell you one particular story, which happened while I was mowing my lawn. Now, I don't know if you mow your lawn, but mowing the lawn is a pretty cool thing for me because it requires about 3 hours. I've got, as you've probably gathered, a lot of lawn to cut. It's probably, all said, it's probably about 4 acres plus of lawn to cut, plus that involves weed whacking, and it's a chore. It's a chore, and I do it myself. I generally enjoy doing it. In fact, I enjoy doing it more these days than I ever did. And the reason is a lot of things you can do a lot on the lawnmower. Besides cut the lawn, you can pray. You can listen to music. You can listen to books on tape. You can ponder and, think about, for me, what do I want to do landscaping wise or projects around the house? You can be thinking in your own head, right? I suppose you could be singing, but with the tractor and the headphones on and everything else, it's not really conducive. You're not going to hear yourself. So you're talking in your head. Everything's in your head, right? Now, at this particular time, I had this question that I put to God. How do I know? In other words, if the question is, what's the truth? Well, then the question is, how do I know that I know the truth? Right? How do I know? Now, once you think, you might think that, well, that's it. That's all you need. But what you know is the problem. It is. Follow me here. The problem is we all think we know the truth, right? So it's not what you know, right? It's not what you think you know. That's where it begins. That's where the journey, that's where the searching begins. And oftentimes, and unfortunately, is where it stops too. Oh, I know. Hey, I know. And that's how you get these, totally walled off conversations, walled off attitudes. Because you're so sure, right? Well, I realized that in my thought process on my lawnmower, and so I said, "Oh, how do I know?" Wasn't the answer. It wasn't going to be any bit of a solution. In fact, it was the problem. So then I said, well, how do I know that I know? Okay? And that's where I got stuck. How do I know that I know? And that's where I got stuck. And I'm saying stuck, meaning I stayed on that question. So if you've ever done affirmations, if you've ever done tapping into your subconscious, you might know that one of the best ways to tap into your subconscious is to plant a question to your subconscious and wait for the answer. Okay? But I was having a conversation with God, and I was honestly looking for an answer to that question. So I turned the question of how do I know to how do I know that I know? And I wasn't satisfied with me coming up with the answer to that. Because then I felt that I'd just be right back where everybody else is, confident that I know that I know. In other words, you go to almost to a point of arrogance, of super closed-mindedness. So how do I know that I know wasn't entirely sufficient. So I put the question to God. How do I know that I know? What gives me confidence that I really do know? What's my root? What do I lock into? What's the rock of assurance here? Right? Where am I going to get the something of the truth? Okay, that I know the truth. And so I started asking that question. Now, you can answer that question yourself. There's a lot of ways you might answer that question. Oh, I'll research it. Okay, I'll ask some other people's opinions. I'll read, I'll look for surveys or articles that can speak to this. I'll talk to my parents. I'll ask my pastor, perhaps, or rabbi, or somebody who's wise. That's not a bad one, if they're the right person. Okay. Maybe they've gone through a little bit of this process if they're guiding you correctly. Okay. So I kept asking the question myself. And I asked it, and I asked it over and again. So I'm mowing the lawn. You got to kind of picture that. You can just say to yourself, okay, we're going to picture him being crazy, talking to himself, you might say. I'm mowing the lawn. I got my headphones on. I'm out there going around in patterns and circles and every rows and everything. And I'm saying, how do I know that I know? How do I know that I know? It became like a mantra. Like a mantra, if you've ever done yoga or something of that sort. Like a mantra. But it wasn't just a mantra. It wasn't an affirmation. It genuinely was a question that I was posing to a higher power. I wanted the answer to come from outside of me. You follow me? Outside of me, from what I felt was the one legitimate source, God. I wanted to know that answer. How do I know that I know? I did this for many minutes. I got quite worked up. I was yelling it, I would have to say. Again, picture the crazy man on the lawnmower. That's me. Okay. Yeah, I was a little bit crazed because I felt it was that important a question, and I was demanding an answer from a higher power. That's going to put you in a little bit of a altered state, you might say. Now, I'm not saying I was dangerous or anything. I certainly wasn't crazy, but I was insisting on an answer if I might get it from God. This went on for several minutes until I stopped my lawnmower. I stopped my lawnmower and I sat there and I started saying it further, continued to say it. And I basically put my foot down, you might say, with God. He says, I'm not leaving here. I'm not doing any more mowing. I'm done. I'm stopped. I'm waiting for you to answer me. And I kept asking the question, and I asked it louder and more forcefully, you might say, if that's the appropriate term, until an answer came. Yeah. An answer came. An answer came. It wasn't an answer from me. It wasn't. I know it wasn't. Yes, it may have come from my heart, you might say. It may have come from my subconscious. But as far as I'm concerned, what I heard was not me. And I'm going to tell you something, that when I heard this answer, not only did I accept the answer, but there's this feeling one gets when something becomes so clear. You might call it an epiphany. Okay? You could certainly call it a spiritual moment. Because when I heard the answer from a higher power, not me, I knew it was accurate. I knew it was true. I knew it was the truth. Not only did I know intellectually, but every ounce of my body knew. My breath knew. My heart knew. My shoulders knew. My back knew. My face knew. My ears knew. My head knew. Everything knew that what I just heard was the truth to that question. And it's guided me ever since. And if you feel like you've noticed some change in me, maybe it is because of that. I think it's a journey that began before that moment, but that was a defining moment. That was a watershed moment. That was a milestone moment. I've had other milestones, but I'm not here to talk about those right now. Spiritual ones, and I could tell you that one of them is connected to why I'm Jonah today, by name, by introducing myself, versus Bobby or Robert, even though my full name is. That was a moment. That's a moment when God explained it all to me then too. But in this particular instance, God needed very few words to answer this question. Ironically, he needed very few words. He needed one word in order to answer the question. But in this one word answer to the question, he gave me books and books. He gave me an infinite answer. You want to know? So here's the problem. If I tell you, what are you going to do with it? Well, you could do one of two things, or three things. One is you could say, oh, that's all it is, or poo-hoo it. You could, two, take it very, very seriously. Take it very, very, very seriously. Because the answer I got was not an answer for just me. It was an answer for everyone. It was an answer for you too. In many respects, I think it's an answer for the world. How do I know that I know? How do I know that I know? How do I know that I know? And the answer that came to me was simply the Word. I'll know that I know in the Word. Hasn't failed me since. Do what you will with it. Do what you will with it. It's your free will. That's what God gave us. Free will. I'll end with this last thought of mine. This is not a new thought in a worldly sense, but here's a thought. So you're born. We're a physical body. When we die, our physical body no longer functions. What leaves us? Our breath. If you take your last breath, you're dead. Your brain might function a little bit longer. Your organs might run a little bit longer. Your brain might continue a little bit longer. But if it's your last breath, you're dead. And at your first breath, life comes into you. That's why when a mother gives birth to a child, the thing she wants to hear is not the slap. She wants to hear the cry or that gasp. Because that's the moment she knows her baby has come to physical life. But what is that breath besides the mechanics of the body? It's the soul. And we carry that with us through our life. We carry our soul until we give up our last breath. Okay. Where are we going with it? Well, if it is something that's a gift from God, birth, a gift from God. There's a name, actually, that means a gift from God. That's the name Nathan. And Nathan happens to be my new great nephew. My sister Patty had a grandchild, her first grandchild. I'm over the moon happy for her. But that's a whole nother story. And they named the child Nathan, a gift from God. That's the Hebrew name. When that breath comes into us, and it talks about this in the creation of man, we come up from the dust, mud, dirt. And then God, through creation, breathes, blows our breath into us. Our breath comes into us. Our soul comes into us. And we carry that soul for the rest of our quote-unquote life until we give it up. Wherever we might give it up, whenever we might give it up, however we might give it up, till we give it up. And when we give up our breath and we give up our soul, the journey that our body's been on, the journey our soul has been on, is over. But that breath isn't gone. In fact, the breath is from the molecules even that were in the breath of Caesar are still in the air today. There's a great book on this. It's called I think it's called Gases. But anyway, I finished that a while back. It's a really interesting book. I'm off the subject, but not really. The point being is, when we give up our breath, our soul is going back to where it came from. God gives us it, and then it leaves us, and it returns home. Okay, I got to bring my dog Casper back up here. Come here, Casper. Come on, Casper. Okay, go on. Go to mommy. There, Mary's up there, and she's got to get Casper in the pen. So anyway, sorry for all the distractions at the end here. So we carry that breath, that soul with us until we give it back up. It's on a journey, and it's going to run into so many things. Simchas, joy, stress, strain, strife, everything. And it's going to be in a world which is filled with lies. And there is evil that will try to knock that soul off its path in its journey back home. Politicians. Look what's going on over in the Middle East. Corporation interests, individual interests, selfish interests, our own personal desires. There's any multitude of things that are trying to knock us off our path, and more significantly, trying to knock the soul off the path back home. And when that's happening, you need help. You need something inside of you that guides you. You need a spiritual sense inside of you that guides you back home. And when you're looking for that guidance, in order to know that you know the Word, it'll bring you back home. It'll get you back home, I'm sure of it. Have a great day.